The one question I am asked more than any other is, how did you get there? How did you become a voice actor? And today and next Saturday, you're going to hear virtually everything that I can give you, which will be the answer to that question. Today, we're going to concentrate on everything from basically, my childhood to getting an agent here in Los Angeles. Halfway through, we're going to take a bit of a break, probably 10, 15 minutes, and my beautiful assistant, Abby Cluster, who is also one of my students, my private students, is we're going to filter through some of your questions and answer your questions live here on Ustream in the second half, okay? So please send them in. How do they do that? It's part of the chat, right?
Yeah, it's part of the social stream here on Ustream, and they can send in their questions, and we'll go forward.
Great. Okay, so please, you just heard what the beautiful, talented, lovely Abby Cluster just said. Send them as part of the social stream, and if there are some that are a little redundant, which happens always, just listen, because quite often people will ask questions that you may have, and even though I may not answer your question per se, it'll give you a lot of information. Also, remember that after the fact, you can go back and listen to this and watch this as often as you like, which is really cool, because what I get from my private students a lot, apart from the fact they say, why did I pay you so much money? Which is great for you because this is a lot cheaper. No, what they say is, I just listened to your session that I did with you 6 months ago. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times. I just got something really interesting that I gleaned off of the session that I'm going to use for live, cold readings, or developing a character, or a voice placement for a particular character. So I really encourage you to go back and listen. But again, once you've paid for it, you can watch it as often as you like. So as I said, this week we're going to start at the beginning to where I got to the time that I got an agent. Take a break, take your questions. Next week we're going to go from getting an agent to today, to being a 2-time turtle and Yakko and Pinky and Carl and Donatello and Raphael and whatever. So I hope that you guys are having as much fun as I am, because this is really cool. So okay, let's officially begin. The one thing, I should say, we're doing this, not the one thing. As I said, the one thing I'm asked is, how did you become a voice actor? The 4 primary things that I find in everybody who is successful, and I'm not just talking about actors, I'm talking about the people I've had the good fortune of knowing. I've had the good fortune of playing hockey with some of my heroes. I have had the opportunity to meet very many successful people. And they all have something in common. In addition to my beautiful friend April Winchell, she has this too. In addition to the heartbreak of psoriasis, you have that as well. But no, they all have a passion, they have determination, they have drive, and they have humility. And determination or commitment, however you want to, but they all have that. Passion, commitment, drive, and humility. And I think that's really, really important to let you folks know that. Because the passion is what ends up getting you to be successful in whatever it is you choose to do. Today we're obviously talking about voice acting, but the truth is, a lot of you may listen to this, may find that it's interesting, but even if you take something away that helps you in another avenue of your life, that's really important to me, because it really is about being passionate about what you want to do. So in my case, when I first started, I was born in Detroit back in just after the Stone Age, and many of you who listen to my podcast, you know that I say I have the patent for fire. April, did you know that I hold the patent for fire?
I wasn't aware of it.
You're welcome. Just so you know. Yeah. So
I did.
yeah, I know. Thank you. But when I was a kid, of course, back many, many, many years ago, I was inspired, like most of you, by things that I saw on television. I remember clearly watching all of my favorite cartoons, the Warner Brothers stuff, Rocky and Bullwinkle. I actually remember the tail end of your father, Paul Winchell's shows, watching, really, that was really cool. It's so cool to have you here. But all of those things, all of them intrigued me, not unlike probably you guys with Ninja Turtles, with Animaniacs, with Pinky and the Brain, all of that stuff. They were very, very instrumental in getting me interested. That was when I was quite young, but I really didn't know that I had any talent that would lead me down a road to performing until I was probably in high school. So let's just jump ahead a little bit. When I was probably 15 or 16 is when I really realized I had a Jones to perform. I mean, I really started to develop a passion, okay? In my case, I was a singer first. I thought to myself, I just really loved to sing. My parents were both performers to some extent. My siblings, my brother and my sisters, Mike, Lori, and Shelley were all performers. I was the only one stupid enough to continue to go forward. But that's where I really, really got this, and I've described it before as kind of almost a chemical vibe. That is to say, the excitement that I get when I perform, and in my case when I was younger, it was the reaction you get from relatives. I'm sure many of you have done that, or you get to school plays, whatever. It was a chemical thing that I thought, I really can't not do this. Often, the reaction was from myself. It was to please myself. I enjoyed singing. It made me feel really good. To this day, when I was just singing Yakko's World, it's a really exciting thing. Oh, and by the way, people ask me all the time, do you ever get tired of people asking you to sing Yakko's World? No. The problem is when people stop asking. That's when you got a problem. So if you want me to sing Yakko's World and you see me at some personal appearance, ask away. I'm happy to do it. So in any case, I was a singer, and I loved the excitement of performing. Again, whether it was in front of people or myself. Then, because I was so involved with cartoons like every other little kid, all the people who inspired me were like June Foray, who's been on my podcast, obviously Mel Blanc, Dawes Butler. You heard from Nancy Cartwright. You will hear from Corey Burton in upcoming podcasts and possibly hear about how they studied with Dawes Butler. It was, Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear and Snagglepuss. Yeah, everybody. Don Messick, all these lovely actors, Paul Frees, Jay Ward, Bill Scott, Hans Conried, all these people inspired me. So that what I would try to do is not necessarily imitate them, but come up with my versions of their characters. The Pythons, The Goon Show, Peter Sellers was a huge influence on me. A lot of sort of obscure British comics. Tony Hancock, Kenneth Williams. I used to watch a lot of the Carry On films, which I think is how I developed my affinity for doing sort of English accents, which put me in good stead with one character I now have nerve. So all these people were very inspirational to me. And what I would do is I would take the sort of little nuts and bolts and pieces of characters that I heard and that I fell in love with on TV and try to morph them into my own thing, because I'm not a very good impressionist. We leave that to people like Maurice and Frank Welker and D. Bradley Baker, DiMaggio, Billy West. These guys are terrific impressionists. I'm not very good at that. I'm also not very good at decoupage, but that really has... Thank you. My live audience is laughing at me. And I'm really good at I could get some stuff on Regretzi with my decoupage.
Very good at decoupage.
Thank you, honey. So I found that for my purposes, that I enjoyed, as I said, sort of taking characters and morphing them into my own little characters. Then I would start to sing in them because, as I said, I'm a singer first. And by the way, you'll find that I do this a lot. I extemporaneously speak about all these things and I bounce around a lot. And again, I'd be doing the same thing if I were in front of 100 of you or 200 of you. So keep those questions coming. But I do bounce around a lot because it'll make me think of something. Often people say to me, I'm not a very good singer. I happen to be, I think, a reasonably good singer. I'm not a fabulous singer, but I'm good enough. But often people say to me, Rob, I'm a lousy singer. I can't. It doesn't matter. The whole idea is that you're not encumbered by your embarrassment. Don't worry about whether or not you sound good. Don't worry that it's not good enough for anyone else to hear. I know. You're all just crying right now. But that's how you develop characters, by not being afraid. I read a great quote once that said, you're only as good as you dare to be bad. And that's really true, especially in animation, because we're not supposed to be encumbered by our physicality, right? So the fact that you're not necessarily a good singer doesn't mean you can't create an interesting character in the context of your own, creativity. So that's what I would do. I would start to develop characters and come up with placements, whether it was in the back of my throat or that thing like this with the thing, or that kind of stuff, and start singing, songs. And not necessarily any particular song, anything that was good to me. It's happy birthday to you, or Marietta, little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. It doesn't matter how many, there are only 8 notes. How hard can it be, right? But that's how you begin developing interest. And many of you are probably nodding your head going, wow, I do that all the time. Well, it's not a big different or a mystery, for my stuff. This is how I started as well. And Billy West has a great quote. Billy and I, of course, are very good friends, and he is, as you know, incredibly gifted. Billy says that his heroes when he was a kid, his influences were all artists. He doesn't necessarily look at them as actors or singers, artists. I mean, he was influenced by Jeff Beck, because he's a guitar player. Same thing with me. I was influenced by a lot of rock and roll singers. I sung in a lot of rock and roll bands, and I would take those instincts that interested me and apply them to character voices. And again, we'll get more specific about that perhaps with some of your questions. But then, a little bit later in my sort of development with voice acting stuff, again, I mentioned to you all the people who used to inspire me and other characters. I also found, before I forget, that when I was really enamored by a cartoon, by an animated character, I would find that the best characters made me believe what I was seeing on TV. As an example, Bugs Bunny, interesting bit, if you listen to Phil Lamar on my podcast, Phil Lamar said one of his favorite actors was Bugs Bunny. He didn't say Mel Blanc. He said one of his favorite actors was Bugs Bunny. And I found that really curious because, as you know, Phil is a very accomplished guy. I think a Yale grad, Harvard grad or something. Incredibly talented improviser, Mad TV, Futurama, incredibly gifted. And here's a guy with all that background who said Bugs Bunny was one of his favorite actors. He's dead serious about it. And I get what he means by that, because what he means by that is and I use this hackneyed actor phrase, the organic nature of that character is such that you could see Bugs Bunny in a scene, and then you would sort of watch a 15, 20-minute cartoon with Bugs in it, and, Elmer Fudd and everybody else. But then you can actually, at least I could actually envision Bugs back in his rabbit hole, reading the Wall Street Journal, reading a racing form, right? And even though even though the only thing I can do is say, what's up, Doc, and then I'm lost, it doesn't matter, because those characters were so interesting to me that I started to develop my own sense of how I could develop things that made those characters interesting to me and to other people. I mean, obviously, my own audience at the beginning was basically myself. I found that if it was interesting to me, or fascinated me, or entertained me, often it would entertain somebody else. But if you know what I'm saying, hopefully you feel that with some of the characters that I've done. But whether it's Rocky and Bullwinkle, or Bugs, or Daffy, there were many characters that would affect me in a way that I would buy them. I mean, obviously I wasn't that out to lunch. I knew that they were, cartoon characters, but I bought hook, line, and sinker the idea that they were real in their world. And I have to say, in my experience now, the characters that people like the most are, in my view, characters that the risk of sounding a little arrogant, have that same quality. I think Pinky has a very organic quality, as does the brain, and their relationship. That's what it's about. It's about the relationship and performance. Acting is acting. It's not about whether it's with your voice or your face. Acting is acting. Developing characters is developing characters. Making them interesting, making them organic and natural in the context of their own setting is what makes people love those characters. And you can go on, whether it's The Simpsons or Futurama or Family Guy or any of those really well done shows. There is a quality about all of those characters that makes you want to come back, and it's about the relationships. So anyway, back to me watching those shows. I got it. I got it at an early age about what it was that made me want to watch Bugs and Daffy and Tweety as much as I'd want to watch Jack Nicholson and Jack Hawkins or Frederick March, or really good actors. And that's how we go back to Phil Lamar saying he thought that Bugs was one of his favorite actors. They're all performed. We know that they're characters developed by human actors, but they all have that nugget and that kernel of an organic quality that makes you want to watch them again and again and again. So I started to move a little bit forward with those things and develop my own, characters. Then I started really performing a lot in high school, 16, 17 years old. In my case, it wasn't a lot of musical theater. My siblings were all involved in the musicals. I was involved in rock and roll. I played hockey, so I had friends on the jock side of things, and I was in rock and roll bands, so I had friends on the freak side of things. So I was one of those hockey-playing rock and roll singers. Hock and roll, I guess is what. Is that good, Abby? Yeah, thank you. Hock and roll. Yeah. Thank you, April. You can use that. But honestly, I wanted to be a professional hockey player, as many of you know, and clearly I had neither the talent nor the temperament to do that. And luckily for me and my nose and my face, which has been rearranged a couple of times as a result of some very healthy Canadian boys, I was grateful that I had acting to fall back on. So that's when I really started performing in earnest in high school. A lot of live performance, rock and roll, doing, in those days, of course, in the days just after the invention of the wheel, we didn't have Ustream. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have digital recording. We didn't have stuff. I did an audition yesterday for a Disney project on my iPad. But I even used the
So cool.
Yeah, but I used the microphone in. Where am I? Am I over here now? Oh, hi. Hi, I'm back here. I used the microphone in the iPad and Twisted Wave, the application.
Yeah, I have that. I love
Isn't that great?
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, you should download it.
It's absolutely fantastic.
It's absolutely.
Got that? I know, I can't stop it. It's just, it's a drug.
You're a punny guy.
I'm a punny guy, right? So the point is that we didn't have any of that stuff. What we did have, of course, is reel-to-reel tape players. Myself and my friends would get together and we would do we would record ourselves in the studio, live, but recording sound productions. So we would write our own stories. We would come up with characters. I really encourage you guys to do that sort of thing now. And now you have this really amazing outlet for your creativity. I mean, the YouTube thing is just insane. And many of you know that I had, a couple months ago, I had Dane and oh my God, Tom Shepard, all these guys. We did an evening of The Annoying Orange. Dane is the perfect example of what I'm describing to you guys. Here's a guy from, I think he's from North Dakota, who went to the University of North Dakota, was a film student in North Dakota, right? Now, and he got that he couldn't do it there. But what he could do there is put together stuff on the internet. And by the time he got really established here in Los Angeles, the guy had The Annoying Orange with 500 million hits, right?
I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Super hilarious.
He had 500 million hits on the on his YouTube side with The Annoying Orange. Well, any network exec is going to look at that and say, hey, this kid's got 500 million hits. So the point is, I'm jumping all over the place, but the point is that when I was at the position that many of you are, some of you, by the way, I know are much younger, in your teens and your early 20s, and you have at your disposal many ways to get your stuff out there. What I did, as I said, was record stuff with my friends, and we would play it for our friends, and we would invite people over for listening parties and make little copies and give them out to friends. And so I might have handed out 30 copies of me with my friends doing a bunch of stuff in my schoolmate's father's studio. I had a dear friend of mine, the Lamb family, back in Flint, Michigan, and Mr. Lamb used to do a daily show in his studio called the Buick Factory Whistle Show, because as you know, that's where Buicks used to be built. It's a pretty tough place back there now. But he had this great studio, so I and Bob and Jeff and Bill Lamb would go and record these things, and so we probably handed out 40 or 50 of them to our friends. And people would say, oh, that's kind of funny. I like your goofy, funny voice. But that was my outlet. That and, my opportunities to perform in front of people. So what I would do then, after I really got the bug to start performing, is when I was doing these bits and I'm doing live performances with the rock and roll bands that I'd be working in at the time, is I would start to take opportunities in front of crowds to do my characters. Now, often it would crash and burn, and you have to be able to sort of deal with that. It takes, I think, a lot of cockeyed optimism and impetuousness to say, okay, I got this group of people who are here to hear me sing all these rock and roll songs in our goofy little band. But now that I got them here, I have an audience. So I would start singing songs in characters. And that actually has happened now a lot with respect to my podcast. One of the things people love the most is when Pinky starts singing Zeppelin. Did you ever heard that, April, when Pinky starts singing? Come to the land of the oasis now where the midnight sun and the hot springs glow. North. I know. Or we did one where Pinky hosted an episode of Talking Tunes, and he started out going, spend my days with a woman in kind, smoke my stuff and drank all my wine. He was doing singing going to California. So I used to do that in front of people when I was 17 or 18, which, as you can imagine, was a little disconcerting to them. But it was a great training ground. Can you guys hear this outside? Oh, good. Okay, we got people outside. There's a knife fight. Not a big deal. We're in Hollywood. It happens. Drug deals being made. As a matter of fact, if you go out, April,
can you
and just
a couple,
I've
just
got
one dime bag. I'm fine.
Thank you. Just take care of me for later, as I need to, calm down afterwards.
You need to calm down now.
I know, I do. I'm just trying to. I'm so excited that I have to slow my pace down. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm so jazzed. But that's often how I would start to cultivate these characters. Doing them on stage in front of people, and I encourage all of you, if you are involved in community theater, if you're involved in school projects. I understand that a lot of high schools, they don't have the budgets anymore for those things. That used to be a no-brainer. Every public school, public high school had theater departments. One of the things that I would love to do, if I made a ton of dough, is to sponsor theater departments. Wouldn't that be great to get those back? Yeah, because April and I both.
I'm still in high school.
Yeah, you're still. Oh, Jesus. And she's got a child. Way to go, James.
She's 16 and pregnant.
Nice touch. The option of being able to go to school and work on high school productions is a really cool thing that not everybody is able to do. However, many of you have theater projects that go on at church. You have local theater departments. You have we have the Caneo Theater, the Caneo Players here in the Caneo Valley. You watch Waiting for Guffman. Every community theater has got Corky. Watch Waiting for Guffman. That's really a great little slice of real community theater, isn't it, April? Yeah.
Absolutely factual.
So please do that. Any opportunity, if you're a dancer, please dance. If you're a singer, sing. If you're an actor, act. All of those things will... Improv. Mm-hmm. Lots of improv. You've heard me talk about that on the podcast. Lots of improv. Really, really important. All these actors with whom I've worked all have a performance background. Everybody. April did lots of stage. I did, a lot of music, a lot of improv. Phil's a groundling. Lorraine Newman, of course, we know Lorraine. Everybody. Honest to God, there are only two people I can think of in terms of my friendship with them and in terms of working with them who literally came out of the chute wanting to be voice actors, and that's Nancy Cartwright and Corey Burton, both of whom are incredibly gifted and have had wonderful careers. But out of the hundreds of people whom I work with and have worked with over the years, many of whom have already passed on, all have performance backgrounds. It does a number of things. It allows you to be in touch with what it is that makes you comfortable with your own body and your own space, and it gives you feedback. It lets you know what works and what doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's great to be able to perform and have a safe haven for you to do your gig and make a mistake and come back. Trust me, all of us have been there where you hear one thing like this, and it's one guy who's had 4 shots and smoked a big hooter out in the parking lot, and he'd clap if you came on and lit your hair on fire. I mean, it doesn't matter, right? So,
where is he when I'm performing?
What's that?
I said, where is he when I'm performing? I would like him to
You get nothing? You hear crickets?
Guy with the come back to my show.
I see. Okay. Well, we've heard crickets too, and it's not just Frank Welker. We've all heard crickets. So please do that. Again, when I bounce around with these things, it's because I'm reminded of how important it is now that I performed as a kid. I had no idea when I was doing things at 14, 15, 17, 18, 19 years old how much importance they would play in my future development as primarily a voice actor. So please do all of that. Continue to work on your characters. If you want to, do your own YouTube channel, get your friends together. You have friends that can do flash animation. You can do. I can't. I am as dumb as a box of rocks when it comes to doing all that technical stuff. But the opportunity to do it and to put it together with your own friends or yourself or whatever is so available to you, and it's free with very few exceptions. I mean, you got to maybe buy a program and a microphone or but it really is not an expensive proposition, or you have friends who have the equipment. Please, do all of that. When I was in high school, and as I said, doing, live rock and roll and all of that stuff, after high school, I attended the University of Michigan for about an hour and a half. It was pretty clear that I didn't want to be there. And I remember coming home and telling my parents, again, I'm the oldest in the family, and I said, Mom, Dad, I'm wasting your money and my time. Man, I want to be in the moving picture business. And as you can imagine, and now being a parent of a college graduate, you can imagine that was not a very popular decision in terms of my family, my parents. However, my parents were very clear. They're like, okay, well, you went to college for a year, and that was not a huge success for you. But you're welcome to do whatever you want to do. It's your life. And I have to say, people have asked me, as a matter of fact, I was tweeted the other day, somebody said, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And I took that to mean life advice, not just career advice. The best piece of advice I've ever gotten is that nobody owes me anything, that the world doesn't owe me a living. My life is my responsibility, and my parents basically said the same thing. Some of you may be in the same position. They said, look, if you want to go to California and do your thing, that's fine. We think it's not necessarily the right thing, but if you want to do it, that's great. Understand that the money that's going to the University of Michigan doesn't follow you to wherever you go in California. And I said, okay, I get that. And so I moved to California with my friend Bob Lamb, one of the folks whom I described earlier, whose father had the recording studio in Flint. So we packed up our respective little cars and drove out to Los Angeles in the summer of 1978. I know, 78, my God. That was just after the Civil War, wasn't it?
Something like
Something
that.
like
I'm not
that.
sure I wasn't alive.
I know, thank you for that. I wasn't alive. God. Neither was I, really, until I got to California. But, so anyway, came to California, but before I did that, I had spent, after high school, I went to college, I said, for a year. But forgive me, I kind of had a little brain fart there. Between going to California and leaving college, I spent a year with a theater company. I joined a theater company that a friend of mine had told me about, and spent about a year, going around the United States and Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica. I know, it happens. I just can't help myself. Every now and then, it just pops into my head. But I spent a year doing live theater. Again, huge importance with respect to my future as a voice actor, because, again, acting is acting. It's not just about making the funny voice, guys. It's not just about being able to sing in the funny voice. It's about being able to make choices and commit to them. There's that commitment thing again, which makes these characters interesting. So I did live theater. Fantastic experience for a year. I mean, every night on stage, working on plays, really incredible experience. And then went back to Michigan and joined another rock and roll band for a while. I did that for another, year and a half. That's when after that, being on stage again, I ended up moving to California. But again, the whole stage thing and the opportunity to perform live, whether it's on a stage in front of a paying group of folks coming to see your theater production, or you're a human jukebox in a bar 6 nights a week, is invaluable. You learn how to screw up, you learn how to recover from your screw-ups, you learn how to speak extemporaneously, which is what I've been doing for almost 40 minutes, and you learn how to handle yourself in a performance situation. And the reason that's important for voice actors is because down the road, you're going to be in a position to audition. And whether or not you're auditioning with your body or your face or your voice or whatever, there still is the you know, all the nerves that come into play, the ability to focus on what you're doing at the moment, putting whatever it is that's a hassle in your life out of the way so that you can focus on your audition. All of those things come into play. So again, we're here for you to understand what it took for me to get here. And even though I encourage all of you to use what is at your disposal vis-a-vis the internet, YouTube, all of those things, I really encourage you to do live performing, improv, music, whatever, as well, because it will put you in a position where you are comfortable in your own skin. I know that's a phrase you hear all the time, but it really makes a difference. So when we look back now at what I had done and the work that I had done on my own career, by the time I decided to make the jump to Los Angeles, I had, relative to my age, I was 22, so relative to my age, I had a lot of experience. I had probably 2 or 3 years of experience in live music, another year and change live stage experience, the work that I had done with my friends at Mr. and Mrs. Lamb's recording studio, all of that stuff. When you look at it, from the time I was maybe 16 to 22, I spent the lion's share of my time performing, right? So the opportunities that came up after I got to Los Angeles, when you look in the context of what I had done by the time I got here, was quite a bit. So it wasn't like I was going to get to Los Angeles and be freaked out. I mean, I knew that the odds of making a living as a performer were pretty astronomical. I mean, it might as well have been, you know, wanted to be a brain surgeon or an NBA star or a hockey star or whatever. They're all pretty astronomical. But the point was that by the time I had decided to move to Los Angeles, as I kind of mentioned it earlier, I had an even deeper desire to drive, if you will, to keep going. Passion, commitment, drive. And we'll talk about the humility part later. Because at that point, it was all about me. And it kind of has to be at a certain point. That's why I encourage folks, many of you are younger, I encourage you to jump on this when you're young. Because you need to be selfish. You need to be concerned about what it is about this thing that you love doing that is so exciting. You know, you're going to have plenty of time to be involved with bills and money and, you know, relationships, all of that, which is very important. But when you're a kid, this is the time that you should really start to explore that stuff. And again, I'm giving you all this information because these are really, looking back now at my ripe, old, firmly ensconced in middle-age life, I realize how important it was for me to be focused and to have that drive and to have that determination. It didn't really concern me that I didn't have a backup plan, because for me it wasn't about the backup plan. It was about, I can't not do this. If I don't perform, Justin, you're shaking your head, right? My friend Justin Cowden. Yeah, it's interesting. And even April, she's so bitter about everything. Even April.
And drunk.
And drunk. Jesus, it's 20 minutes to 5 somewhere, right? Drink up, Shriners. Ha. By the way, April is also, we forgot, she's the inventor of sock puppet theater, right? You are. And the most recent sock puppet theater is the one where I've had a little bit to drink. Ink.
And there's regular old Rob Paulsen for you, ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen.
there you go, everybody. Woo! Oh, I'm over here. Woo! I know we're supposed to be having fun too, but forgive me, I'm trying to be serious. Anyway, no, so as I was saying, this is the time for you guys to really experiment, because you can't not do it. That's not to say that I don't think you should go to school. I have a lot of friends. My son is a college graduate, and you can get your degree in theater. All of that is wonderful. Please do that if that also drives you. Because, again, remember what I said, and when you go back and listen to this at the beginning, when I talk about passion, it doesn't necessarily have to be with respect to showbiz. Many of you will change your minds, but passion is so important in your success. Not the money, the passion. I got to tell you, it never occurred to me that I'm going to go and be an actor and make a lot of money. I promise you it didn't. Now, I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is a lot better. And I'm getting paid to be here. Thank you very much. However, the things that made me successful and are continuing to make me keep working, 25 or almost 30 years into this incredible experiment, I still can't believe it, is not about the money. And I've been down that road, you guys. I'll tell you a very quick story. When I first got to LA, we'll go into this further next week, but as a tease, I remember I had a fair amount of success right out of the chute when I got my first agent. They still represent me, God bless them. I don't know what the hell they're smoking, but they still represent me. And they sent me out in a series of, I signed with them ostensibly as an on-camera talent. So they sent me out to do some Jack in the Box auditions. I got the gig. I ended up doing 5 Jack in the Box commercials right out of the chute. Oh, and I was selling a product called Frings, which is really genius. You guys will, French fries, onion rings, get it? Rings.
Oh my, it's a genius.
That's why I booked it, because I got the joke. So I did my little thing, right, at the Frings spot. Now, the point is I did a whole bunch of commercials right off the bat. It was great. And, you know, you get residuals, and you go to the mailbox, and you open up the mailbox, and here's a check, and you're going, wait a minute, this is another $500. Is this a mistake? So it was very seductive. And I think a lot of us have been down that road. So I started getting some gigs and making a little bit of money. And then I started going on auditions thinking, if I book this Chrysler spot, I made all this money from Jack in the Box. Jesus, all I got to do is get a few more of these, and I am going to be shitting in high cotton. I am going to be making, it's great. You know what? That was the worst thing that happened to me in my brain at the moment. It was a great lesson. Because once I started worrying about the money, my auditions, right? My auditions went in the tank. And I didn't feel it, but I would start to get this desperation about, oh my God, I didn't even get a call back. What happened? I just got this series of Jack in the Box spots. All right, okay, great. All right, you can do this. Hi, welcome to McDonald's. And all of a sudden, the desperation for the money would get in the way of the audition. And what it was about my specialness that, you know, with the other 300 actors that would walk in, what it was about me, Rob Paulsen, that would enable me to get the job, or at least let the casting people see how good I could be. That was gone. So the moment I was able to not, again, worry about the do-re-mi and get it back to what it was about the passion that got me out here in the first place from Flint, Michigan, which really might as well have been Mars. And I know a lot of you out there are feeling that same thing. It is. You kind of go, I can't get out of Buffalo. I can't get out of Spartanburg, South Carolina. How am I going to get to LA? Well, it's doable. But the point is, it's the passion that I had lost my focus, right, about what it was that I was passionate about. So anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. But back to my journey to California. Again, to reiterate, I had a lot of experience relative to my age. And forgive me for getting I start to stumble because I get really excited and passionate. But I want you guys to have the opportunities that are available to you and cultivate those. So that if you choose to be in Los Angeles, you have some background. It's not just, I did goofy voices for myself and all of that. I did all that too, and that's great. But you need to have a background, improv. Anything you can do. I'm going to keep hammering that all over and over and over and over and over and over again, because there's nothing like screwing up, right, in front of a bunch of people to let you understand, A, it's not going to kill you, and B, how do you deal with it? I believe, and you're here to hear, you're paying to hear what I believe that's really important. And again, you can go back and listen to my podcasts, and you will not find really anybody. By the way, including Andrea Romano and Ginny McSwain, including people who are producers. Peter Hastings was a groundling. Peter is now one of the executive producers on Ninja Turtles, and he also was one of the geniuses behind Animaniacs, and specifically Pinky and the Brain. So he was a groundling. Paul Rugg, a groundling, or a member of the Acme Comedy Theater. What was that? LA Connection, right? And that's where you know Paul, right? So all of these people had performance backgrounds, and these people are folks whom you, the folks out there who are listening to me, have fallen in love with. You love Billy's characters. You love DiMaggio. DiMaggio was a stand-up. Billy was a musician. Did all that work on the Howard Stern show, but long before that, Billy was a musician. Maurice, stand-up. Many of you know that Maurice and I were on Chris Hardwick's Nerdist podcast about a year ago. And it was really funny, mainly because hearing Chris, who was enamored of Maurice, doing his stand-up. Chris Hardwick was a big fan of Maurice. So all of that stuff comes into play. So we're back to me and in California. And so, again, by the time I got out here, lots of experience. Didn't understand while I was doing it that this is what was going to help me, but at least it gives you a feeling when you go to LA or New York or Chicago or Atlanta. There's a lot of work in Atlanta now, Dallas. At least you know when you go to the big city to jump in with both feet into the big showbiz pond, you have something that tells you that it gives you a certain amount of validation about your passion, okay? So, again, let's reiterate. Passion, drive, commitment, and we'll talk about the humility more probably next week. But passion, drive, and commitment. Again, you will not meet anybody, as far as I'm concerned, who doesn't have all of that. I don't care if it's Bill Gates. I don't care if it's April Winchell. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's Billy West. I don't care if it's Jonas Salk, who, for those of you who don't remember, gave us the polio vaccine. He gave us the polio vaccine. Now, talk about commitment and drive, okay, and determination and passion. That's really, really, really important. Okay, so now that I get to LA, after having years of theater, years of live music, my own stuff, my own passion, making myself laugh. Again, to reiterate, I found if it was something that affected me profoundly, whether it was making me laugh, making me cry, just giving me a visceral response, often that I found that would impact an audience in the same way. I learned to trust my own instincts. It's pretty important, really, isn't it? Trusting your own instincts when you get to a place where you have this experience on stage. I don't care if it's performing for your grandparents are going to love you anyway. When you come out there, and in my case, I would put on a little, tutu because I love dressing up like a girl. Sue me.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
Well, you don't, which is so disconcerting.
You know it's true. I usually wear like my husband's clothes around the house.
Well, I wear your husband's clothes too.
I know.
I know. By the way, if you could gain a little
good
weight, it would help me. No, the thing that's really interesting is that, as a side note, to this day, there are passages of music that can bring me to tears. I'm talking about 8 bars. I'm talking about a chunk of music that can literally make me weep. Now, that's pretty amazing, right? Or there are performances. I mean, I saw Chinatown the other day for the first time in years. I had it on my little iPad. Incredible performances, but they're transfixing. Same thing with Michigan J. Frog. That is one of the greatest cartoons. That One Froggy Evening, hello my baby, hello my honey, where the guy puts his fingers behind the frog's feet to make him, that Chuck Jones, that's genius. And I will never forget that as long as I live. Doesn't matter that it's Jack Nicholson to Michigan J. Frog. It's the performance that absolutely gets me. But I started to learn in terms of trusting your own instincts that, again, whatever I did that I thought, oh, that's pretty funny. Or I remember I came up with something once at an audition for we were supposed to be 2 guys our car was broken down. I remember that. And I came up with a really good line, I think, that I've used several times since then. The guy said something to me about, I said, hey man, our car's broken down. He said, are you serious? Or I know what it was. I was calling him on the phone, was for ever-ready flashlight batteries or something. And he said, hey man, I'm sorry, my car's broken down. Are you serious? And I said, man, I'm as serious as a pimple on prom night. And I thought, that's pretty good. I don't know where it came from, but I thought that's pretty good because that's pretty serious. When you're 18 years old and you got a pimple right here that's like a third eye on prom night, you know that somebody's not going to be swapping spit a little bit later. And now at my age, I don't get to anyway, so who cares? But anyway, I thought that was funny. And I used it in the improv. And the guy at the the casting director, oh my God, it's Pimple on Prom Night. It's a great reference. Well, I've used that many times. And I thought it was funny, and it was, and it worked. Now, trusting your instincts is something that comes, with time. But again, going back to that, beating it, over and over and over again, please do as much performing as you can to learn that. And also as a side note, we're talking about other things just besides show business. The confidence that you gain by being on stage, by working really hard at what it is, even if you don't be an actor, it gives you I don't know how to explain it. It gives you a confidence that translates into any other aspect of your life. My brother, who is very successful in the insurance brokerage business in New York, lives in Manhattan, was an actor for many, many years. And finally got to the place in New York and said, okay, I've done this, I've been there, I'm tired of this. But he's really successful. And I believe part of it is because he knows how to carry himself. So we're here talking about acting and performance and all of that. The confidence that you get in sort of knowing yourself and being able to speak. I mean, there are people that pay a lot of money to go to Toastmasters. And when I was a kid, people would pay money to learn how to speak in front of people. Even if it's, a job interview or all of that, I think it's important to understand the nature of learning about yourself in a circumstance like that. So anyway, forgive the rambling, but that's what we do. So getting back to me auditioning, when I first got to Los Angeles, before I had an agent, remember this is taking us up to getting an agent, the first thing I did was get a job. It wasn't a showbiz job. I was pretty lucky because I still am a fairly handy guy. And Betty and Leonard Peterson at the, God bless them, at the Esplanade Village Apartments, God bless them, they probably knew that I was lying through my teeth because when I signed my little lease agreement, do you have a job? Oh yeah, I got a job. I'm not quite sure what the job description is, but I'll let you know. Can I have the apartment? So anyway, to make a long story short, I was pretty lucky because I was able to work at the apartment building in which I signed up for, got an apartment, doing odds and ends. I could clean apartments, I could fix toilets, minor, electrical repairs, and get apartments ready for new people to move into in exchange for rent. And by the way, as a side note, people ask me, I've saved up a couple of $1,000. How much should I have to come to California? Well, whatever you can save, double it or triple it. If you can come to LA and have a whole bunch of money and not have to worry about anything but doing workshops and what do they call them? The thing where you let other people come and see you, showcases.
Oh, showcases, yeah, cabarets, all those things.
Yes.
Yeah, they're super
Any of that stuff. It's great if you've got the dough to do that. I, came to LA and I was broke within a day. After first and last month's rent and buying a little food, I was broke. Mind you, gas at that time was 30 cents a gallon. So I was already broke. Fear is a great motivator, let me tell you. But anyway, we're talking about what I did. I came and I got a gig. I was pretty lucky because I was able to work in the apartment complex and go on things that I would find in Dramalog or in Backstage, or Variety, or The Hollywood Reporter. These are all the trade magazines that you can get online now, but in those days you go to the newsstand and you buy The Hollywood Reporter or Backstage or Dramalog and you'd say, casting for some show, and you'd go and read and get it or not get it. So if you can come here with some cash, bring as much as you can. It is not an inexpensive city in which to live. I had an apartment for $360 a month across the street from the ocean in Redondo Beach, right? I had a $100 a month car payment, and my half of the rent was $180, Jason, right? And I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, how am I going to come up with this every month? Now I spend more than that on Sterno that I drink every day through a sponge. It's good Sterno. I can afford clean Sterno. I can afford to buy clean urine now. My drug test. Just kidding. I know. Poor Abby's going, I don't like this crazy man. No, but the point is that everything is relative. In those days, I was broke like that. So nowadays, my kid has a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in Koreatown that he's paying $1,200 a month for. And you would look at it and go, $1,200 a month? I'm going to buy a house. Hey, welcome to LA. If you go to New York, much worse. San Francisco, even worse. It's crazy. So, as a practical matter, you guys, since we're talking about how we got here and all of that, bring as much money as you can. If you've got a gig at home and you're able to live with your parents or you're able to live on your parents' dime, and trust me, I'm a parent and I love my boy more than my own life. Your parents want what's best for you. They really do. I know that sometimes you're going, what? No, they really do. So by and large, listen to them. Unless you're 40, in which case you have to listen to them going, get out of my house! You have to really listen to them. But no, please, save up your money while you're doing your performing and working on your craft and working on your passion. You want to follow your passion. As a practical matter, whenever you move to the big city, whatever it is, we spoke about New York, Dallas, LA, there's no such thing as too much money. But also, again, remember what I told you, the best piece of advice I ever had? Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. So when it sucks here or New York or whatever, and it will, if you want to feel sorry for yourself, fine. Give yourself a couple of hours to feel bad for yourself and then get over it. Because that's show business, folks. I am a lottery winner. I found something about which I'm passionate, I'm good at it, and I can make a good living at it. Not everybody will have that. But April and I, all of us have friends who have been here a long time and are still struggling. But that's also the passion side of it. They are following their passion. And to them, it's still not about the money, it's about doing the work. Now, the practical side of things is that I have to pay my mortgage is, don't have too many ex-wives yet. Day's not over. But as I say, the practical matter is, and I keep saying the practical aspect of it, and you know, you run into people going, oh, this sucks, man, I had 3 callbacks and it's not fair. You know, it isn't fair. It's not fair that, you know, a lot of us have done on-camera stuff, and you hear producers talking about a beautiful girl who's saying, you know, she's great, but she's going to be 34. She's going to be 34 on her next birthday. That's crazy, but that's show business. One of the great things about what we do, voice actors, is that nobody cares that I'm a middle-aged white guy. I'm a turtle again. How cool is that? But the other side of that is that it doesn't always work for you. It doesn't always work for me. I've had many, many periods where it was Deadsville. In fact, okay, let you in a little secret. The reason I'm doing all of this was, in retrospect, a really cool thing. About almost 3 years ago, it was the early part of 2010. I went through a period where it was really dead. I mean, I had a couple of months that were really dead, which I hadn't experienced in probably 20 years. I had literally a couple of months where I was going, wow, I don't have any, you know, I'd wake up on a Tuesday morning and not have anything booked for, we've all been through that. And I went through it after I had been successful. I have an Emmy, I have a bunch of Annie Awards, I've earned a lot of money, and you know what? It was Deadsville. It was not working. You can take a drink, see if you're coughing. Poor little Abby has tuberculosis, right, honey? I'm so sorry.
It's true, it's an epidemic.
Oh, honey, bless your heart. But the point is that it went south for a couple of months. Now, I went through my obligatory period of going, oh my God, I'm 50-odd years old. Like, this is great. Guess what? Get over it. It happens to everybody, and it also happens to people who are successful. So, as a result of that dead period, I had a few days where I was really feeling sorry for myself, but then I thought, well, you know what? I know that this is what happens sometimes, and I can either succumb to this and say blah, 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 but I can't afford to retire, and I don't want to retire. I still have the passion. That was part of what was driving me nuts. So I said, I'm going to start doing a podcast. How hard can it be? I'm not a genius, but technically it can't be that big a deal. On my cell phone is everybody who's ever done cartoons. Well, here we are now, a couple of years later, almost 3 years later, and people love this goofy little Talkin' Tunes podcast. As a result of the podcast, I was telling April this story, my handsome, talented friend Justin Cowden is here, and we worked together on Ozzy and Drix, right? And what else did we work together on?
Video games with Jack Fletcher.
Jack Fletcher and some video games. And you're going to love this. Talk about serendipity. You never know what's going to happen. That's why I tell you, please explore these issues, because you never know what's going to happen. As a result of me going into Kinko's on the corner of Laurel Canyon and Ventura, into which I'd never been ever in my 55 years of existence, right? Never been in there. At the time I was 55. Now I'm 155. Yeah, thank you, man. It's amazing what a little Botox. Yeah. So I walked into this Kinko and I adjusted. Hey, Rob! And hey, Justin, how you doing? Great, you're not going to believe this. Dude, your podcast, wow. But I have a friend who works at Ustream TV and his wife is a voice, and you really, I mean, you got to hook up because...
That's exactly what Justin sounds like.
Exactly
right
what he's, right? Yeah. And so as a result of that, and as a result of this dead period, over which I completely freaked out and then got my shit together, I did my little podcast, I walk into Kinko's, and here we are, almost a year later, 6-8 months later, I've got these new friends, we're doing Ustream, April and I are going to be doing our live thing from the Lovitz next Friday on Ustream. You've already seen Freddie Tatasciore and me on Ustream. You just never know, folks. Talk about serendipitous. But what it also did was open up a whole new avenue of my career. And this is so cool. I'm so glad that I thought about this. Thanks, Rob. You're welcome. That fall, Ninja Turtles was auditioning again. Now, I know we're bouncing all over the place, but this is, again, really important because I was talking to you about what will happen when you get here and it starts to suck. Okay. But you just never know what's going to happen once you pull yourself out of this morass that you will find yourself in occasionally in your young lives. As a result of that dead spot, and as a result of getting my act together, coming up with a new way to explore new avenues about which I could become passionate again, the podcast starts taking off. My confidence starts to rise. I don't worry about the money because now I'm worried about the money because, right, my mortgages, I've got a wife, I've got, bills, and I've got car payments, and I've got this heroin. I've got, just kidding. Kidding.
Raw food. We call it raw food.
Raw food.
That's what we're spending our money on, raw food,
yeah.
not drugs.
So I got this Jones again, this whole new thing to perform. So one day I get a phone call from my agent saying, hey, Nickelodeon bought Ninja Turtles. Yeah, I knew about that. I work at Nickelodeon doing Tough Puppy and Fairly Odd Parents and Jimmy Neutron. I knew that Viacom had bought the Ninja Turtle franchise. Wow, cool. Never thought in a million years I'd hear about it again, but wow, it's great that maybe though, who knows, maybe I'll get invited to a convention because I was Raphael in the original show. Because of the fact that I found this whole new way to get excited about work, and it was like the universe, and I hate to get a little bit goofy, but it was like the universe saying, dude, you wanted some time to pursue your own gig? Here it is. Go for it. So once I got done freaking out, I was more focused. And I went and read for Ninja Turtles with 300 other guys, with celebrities. And then callback after callback, and I started going, are you fucking, I got a crack at this again? I get a call from my agent saying, guess what? You're Donatello. Now, I really believe in my heart that would not have happened had I not been re-energized over what I thought was the end of my career for a few weeks. I really thought it was done. It had nothing to do with me. My ego was getting in the way. It's not about me, Rob. It's about the fact that it's slow for you right now. Get over it. So I found another way to explore and exploit and work on my passion. So because of that, I'm here doing this. And I'm doing live performances, and April and I are going to try to, take our little show on the road and do the live things at the Lovitz. People enjoy them. Randy Rogel and I have another meeting next week with Warner Brothers Theatrical to take, Animaniacs music live on the road. And the reason I'm telling you guys all of this is because it is always about the passion. Always. It's about the drive. I don't care how much money you have. A guy like Steven Spielberg, who's been delightful to me, as you know, in my career, those guys are driven, and they're passionate about what they do. So, in a nutshell, we go from Rob being a quasi-crappy hockey player to lots of theater, to moving to Los Angeles, to blah, 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 and all of that, lots of stage work. And ultimately, what it's about is the passion, the drive, the commitment, and the humility. Because we'll touch on this and probably more next week, but one of the threads that runs through all the successful people I know is that they find a way to pay it forward. They find a way to be very appreciative of what they have. They find a way to be very appreciative to the people who support them. April and I were just talking about this, is that you people, maybe not specifically, but collectively, millions of people have allowed me to be here. And I get that. And I don't care who it is that we're talking about. All these people have an aspect of their lives where they want to give back, where they want to do something to pay it forward, whether it's helping folks get a leg up in show business or their favorite charities or whatever. That's also a huge piece of the puzzle. And again, we'll talk more about that later. But we are now at about 10 minutes after 2, right? Almost 10 after 2?
Yeah.
So I hope I haven't bored you too much. And I hope you're not going, I paid $75 for this. Too late. I got your money. Thank you very much. You are being, and again, this is my first crack at this type of thing, because usually I've got 100 people in front of me and I'm doing a workshop and we're laughing and we're asking questions in the while I'm pontificating. So I've been chatting for an hour, which is pretty good for an old guy like me.
Feels longer.
It does feel longer, doesn't it? Thank you, April. April Winchell, ladies and gentlemen. She's paying it forward. She's paying it forward, right? Jesus. So that is a pretty good encapsulation of how I went from Grand Blanc, Michigan, to around the country doing live theater, to working on my stuff at home, to being on stage in front of people in bars and clubs, to coming out here, okay? And what we will talk about, we're going to take a bit of a break. We're going to go through some of your questions, and then we'll answer them. But this takes me up to where I've been in LA, and of course I have, bless you. Did you get any on you? It'll work with your outfit. We will, this basically takes me up to getting an agent. As I told you, I found projects on which to work, and we'll talk a little bit when we get back about how I actually got signed to an agent. It was no big mystery. It was just an opportunity, and again, what's really important before we take a break, what's really important to focus on, you guys, is that I didn't realize at the time when I was 14, 16, 19 years old, how important what I was doing was to what would ultimately make me successful, okay? Just like, this is crazy, just like I didn't realize when things went south for me for a couple of months in 2010, that all of the work I had doing, the Emmy and the thousands of episodes of blah, 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 I didn't realize at the time that all of that would allow me to have on this everybody who's ever done anything like this. So that I didn't know about podcasts. I didn't know about anything like that. I thought, wow, I could do a podcast. And we're here because of all of that stuff that was happening when I was working in LA. So it's like I'm starting the third act of my career, and I had no idea. So please, take it from an old guy. You just don't know. Keep doing it, right? Keep your passion happening. So we're going to take a break.
Yep.
You guys can go and get a drink or go to the bathroom or say to yourself, I can't believe I just gave this guy 75 American dollars. But since you're here, come back in about 10 or 15 minutes, and Abby and I will answer your questions. And by the way, it probably will go past 3 o'clock. That doesn't bother me. But again, you'll be able to go back and watch this as much as you like, okay? So if you can't stay after 3, not going to be a problem. You can go listen to this, right?
There's some really awesome questions coming in on the
Oh,
stream.
good. Have we got a few?
Yeah, I've got a lot.
Oh,
so I've
good.
been monitoring. I have seen your guys' questions, so we'll get to you when we get back from our break.
Good. Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to go have a little nip.
Nip tuck.
Kidding. Joke. Thank you for being here. We'll see you guys in a few minutes. Hi.
Hey,
Guess
look.
what? April is back. Let's get you in your key light here, sweetie. We have to make
All
sure.
right,
that,
thank
oh,
you
there
very
you
much.
go. Look
There
at that.
you
Here I
are,
am.
glowing,
James, do I
gorgeous,
need to turn off
beautiful.
this? Do I need to turn
Sure,
off?
it's
I
good.
like it. It looks like. Shake your head, darling. Yeah. Do I need to turn the fan off, or is it okay?
No, I like it. It makes me feel like Fabio.
I know.
I was going to say, you're looking very much like Fabio today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look
that's
at
how
you.
I
Look
feel.
fabulous. Anyway, we're back,
Blends
and
in like
I'm back surrounded by my lovely, beautiful chick friends, the gorgeous April Winchell and the lovely, beautiful Abby Cluster, who is going to help with our questions. You guys have really been.
Look at you, how pretty you are
Isn't
with
she
your pretty,
pretty?
skin.
By the way, may I tell people who you are?
Absolutely.
Those of you out there, check this out. The beautiful Abby Cluster, her father was the original Cobra Commander in Starscream, right? And I worked with your dad, Chris Latta. Her father is the late, great, talented Chris Latta. And I worked with him on the original G.I. Joe and Transformers.
That's
How about that?
Yes, that is true. He is my father.
Well, and
And
now.
you worked with my dad.
It's true.
That's
you
right.
worked with
And my
And
dad
I
is
worked with
also
your
dead,
dad.
and I think it's your fault. Now that
It's
I'm
true.
thinking
Now,
about
we have this in common.
right.
Rob
Our notes
Paulsen
here.
killed our parents.
My dad.
Rob Paulsen killed my dad.
Paulsen killed our parents. That's going to be his new memoir.
That'll be our
killed your
memoir.
dad.
He killed your dad. Oh,
Oh,
my God, that's
Jesus.
great. I love it. Yeah, you worked with my father, and guess what? He's
he's
taking a
dead
dirt nap
too.
too.
Wow, that's a
You know what? And you know what? My dad's dead too.
Oh, boy.
Killing everybody.
And scene.
Anyway, sorry, folks. Yeah, your father was the legendary Paul Winchell.
Yes, he
and
was.
I worked with your dad. Your dad was Gargamel on Smurfs.
And you worked with him.
I did. I walked in and I was absolutely intimidated that your dad was there, Don Messick was there, who was Papa Smurf, Jonathan Witters,
Jeez.
all in the same. Yeah, it was pretty
And
incredible.
It was Hanna-Barbera, right?
Hanna-Barbera,
That was,
yeah.
Even that was intimidating.
Oh my God!
Hanna-Barbera was such an awesome place to work.
Just to walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was incredible. But anyway, you guys have sent tons of questions.
There's lots of questions.
But while we were taking a break, April had some really great thoughts, and you, Abby, because you're one of
Yeah.
my students. Abby's
Yeah,
also
no.
an actress.
I have one of the questions that I personally have going in is the constant, you're constantly auditioning and then constantly being rejected from things. So
Right.
what is your coping mechanism, or how do you kind of go into that, facing that much rejection and kind of staying strong and kind of
Yeah.
thickening your skin to it, because it's a huge
Right, and it's really
It's a huge
important.
part of it.
This is important in the context of what we're talking about, as far as folks, getting into this. And
You have to get a handle on
Yeah.
this immediately. Immediately.
Where are we? Oh,
Oh.
Okay, there we go. Okay, sorry. It's so great
you
that
can
you're.
learn which camera to look into later. What?
Can I have a Caesar salad for lunch, please? Sorry.
But there are no red lights on right now, so I don't really know. So
In
we'll
front of
just
your
look this
house,
way.
though, there's a red
There are
light.
red lights in front of my house.
It's so interesting.
You have to get a handle on the rejection aspect immediately,
Yeah.
because it's going to happen all the time. And the first thing to know is that it's not personal. It's not even remotely personal. It has nothing to do with you. It could be that you sound too much like somebody else, or that your voices aren't going to blend well together,
Yeah.
or that it's a timbre issue, or it sounds too much like a character they've worked with or they already have on another show. I mean, it has nothing to do with your ability. The other thing is that somebody told me a long time ago that the ratio
Like a ratio, yeah.
Yeah, the ratio of jobs that you audition for to jobs that you get is about 40-1. Which means,
Yeah.
and this was a while ago, so it may even be more now, but that means that you've got to read for 40 jobs before you book one. So my strategy is that every time I have an audition and I don't get it, I just mentally tick that off.
Great
And I think,
idea.
okay, I'm closer now
Yeah.
to my next gig. But you've got to find little tricks like that to
Otherwise you go
process
stark
it.
raving mad.
It's so depressing
Yeah.
otherwise. That is the biggest thing that you will face in this business is rejection, more than
Right.
anything else. More than, my craft, or do I have the right character? Do I do this? Was the sound right? All of that technical stuff, those are things to certainly worry about. But rejection is
Yeah.
the biggest thing to overcome, and you have to find some really clever philosophical way of dealing with it, or you'll be so disheartened so fast.
Yeah.
And it's I worked in advertising for a really long time and did a lot of casting.
By the way, also, you were a staff writer on Roseanne for 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been around. Yeah.
I've been around some crazy, is what he's trying to say.
Yeah.
But, I did a lot of advertising
Yeah.
and casting. And once you are on that side of the glass, you can no longer get your feelings hurt with a straight face. Because you're sitting there watching people, and the conversation is like, she looks like my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Or she reminds me of that girl that we used that one time. Remember we hated her? No.
So she's dead. That's it.
She's dead. Rob killed her.
Yeah, I killed her. I killed everybody.
She's got glasses. She's too short. She's too tall. I don't like her hair.
And this is for voiceover.
Well, this is for on
Oh, for
camera
on camera?
also,
Okay,
but
yeah.
I mean, it's like the most capricious,
Yeah.
She
bizarre.
has too many freckles on her left
She has
cheek.
too many freckles.
Yeah.
She's too tall. She's not going to sound right. It could be nothing. It can be
Right.
that somebody had a bad lunch that day. And also, when I did casting for radio commercials, you would get a reel with like 100 auditions for one part.
Yeah.
And after about the third one, you're like,
Right. Fast
if
forward.
they don't get you in the first 3-5 seconds, you don't. That's a good tip.
And that
Right.
actually
Do
lives
not
in-
save your best stuff for later.
Yeah.
Hit it with your best shot.
Somebody told me that somewhere. Don't save your best stuff for page 2. That was like such a good line because you're not going to get to page 2.
Yeah.
So
One of the-
come out strong right away.
One of the questions, actually, that's a great lead into one of our questions is how do you choose what goes onto your demo? How do you pick what what characters you're going to represent there?
I have a little theory about that.
Please,
So
because
let me just
you're in
share that with
casting.
you.
I'm not a casting person.
Um,
I cast aspersions.
you cast a spell on me.
I cast a spell. on you.
Judgments.
You
and-
cast judgments. Okay, here's my theory, and you may not agree with me, and you may have a whole different vibe on it. But
I'm
for
not
me-
afraid to hit a woman.
Well,
I'm not.
do it.
Okay, good.
But just know that I'm wearing glasses, and then you'll have to think about whether that's okay.
Just my criteria for getting married is I'm just looking for a woman who can take a punch. Just kidding.
That's a beautiful
Kidding.
story.
Kidding.
My theory is that it is very important to accept the idea that you can't do everything.
Right.
I don't do children's
makes sense.
voices, for example. I don't. I'm really bad at it. You know what I mean? I
Well,
have
also you know that Tara. I mean, there are people who really do it well.
people are good at it because
Yeah.
that's their thing.
Yeah.
See, that's not my thing. I have a narrow band of characters that I think I do pretty well, and it's usually PMS would be the byword that I would use. It's usually like people.
Which stands for pretty major shit.
That's right.
Right? Yeah.
Mood swinging,
Yeah.
hostility, angry gorgons. I'll go to an audition and they'll hand me a page of this somebody with warts and be like, "Oh, we thought of you." So that's my thing that I do. My theory is figure out what you do well and do that better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Because if you dilute your demo with a bunch of stuff that you kind of do well, the whole overall effect is like, nah.
Yeah.
They'll say, she had a couple of good voices,
Well, and
but
I
it
think
wasn't a good
no,
demo.
I agree with you. I think in my case, what has helped me work is being versatile because being able to sing and do all that
Right.
other stuff. As I said earlier, I didn't realize all this stuff I was doing was going to put me in such good stead later.
Right.
But the fact is that there are certain things. Be smart enough to know what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And I don't bother with impressions because there's Maurice, there's
Right.
Frank, there's Billy, there's there's John DiMaggio,
Yeah.
all these people that do killer impressions.
Yeah. It's okay
So-
to specialize.
That's right. So I can create characters and I can do dialects, but I just got replaced on something. It's a great thing for you to know. I'm doing this thing called Happy Huggle Monsters for Disney Junior. Now stop it,
I wonder
April.
why you got replaced on a Huggle
Huggle
Monster show.
But
That's weird.
I got replaced by the lovely and talented Cree Summer because I came to work one day and they had me doing this voice of this little
Yeah.
11-year-old kid.
It was like this, and it was really forced and sounded really stupid.
And one day they said, Rob, we'll have you do the other goofy characters, but we really want the sound and authentic sound. We'll have Cree do it.
And it's a
And I
woman.
don't
You're
have-
replaced with a woman.
Exactly.
That's another thing. It's like
E.G.
they want a more
Daly,
female
right.
sound. or
Tara,
whatever.
Yeah.
everyone, they're the ones who do
Tress
the kids.
McNeil and I have replaced each other on probably 6 shows.
Have you really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
She was the original Cruella DeVille. I replaced her.
Yeah.
I was the original Jimbo on The Simpsons. She replaced me.
Right.
It just back and forth and back
By
and
the
forth.
way,
It's
a bit of bovine trivia. You and Tress are both California cows, right?
yes. And Clarabelle. Like every damn cow.
I know that
imaginable.
you're Clarabelle, but I was the
What does that
cow
mean?
that was
It's
like,
like,
What does that mean?
They specialize in gorgons and cows and women with PMS. That's
spirit-
my thing. It's kind of
cows
my
are
thing.
your spirit animal. That's what it is.
Cows are my spirit animal.
That's a great bit.
Yeah, you could be right.
You can see April saging her house and going like this.
Moo,
Cows.
moo.
I'm in the mood for love.
I'm cool with that, though.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that. You
think-
know what I mean? It's like if Disney goes, "Oh, we need a cow." April.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
Okay.
We need a lab rat. Rob.
Okay.
I was a biker mouse, right? And I'm Pinky.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
right,
was
that's
You're just
right.
a mouse.
I was a talking mouse in Balto. I was a singing mouse.
How about that?
See?
What?
Okay, so
Jacques,
I have,
I was Jacques too. Yeah, now I sound like a village. Don't ask me why. I'm crazy. I'm a Jacques the Mouse. Sorry, I'm crazy. I'm dead too. Ron Paulsen killed me too.
Jesus, I'm like the plague.
The plague. Ah, it's Ron Paulsen.
Oh, God.
He killed my dad.
Oh, forgive me.
Okay,
Anyway.
so a couple more demo questions leading off of that. We have, which demo do you feel is more important to finish first, your commercial demo or your animation demo?
Do you have to have two?
Not
Yeah, you
necessarily.
gotta have,
I mean,
like, seven
What's your
now.
skill? I mean, maybe you're not a good animation artist. Maybe you have a great announcer voice or a really warm.
well, you're not necessarily an actor per se.
Maybe you
Yeah.
don't do characters. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing. You don't have to do everything. Find
Yeah.
out what you do well and do that better than anybody else.
Yeah, and by the way, that's an interesting point on that. The people ask me all the time. I live in Boca Raton. I live in Detroit. I live in Minneapolis. Well, of course. Oh, the interesting side note: I'm having lunch next week with the guy who's the new voice of the Aflac duck, who is from Minneapolis. Now, of course, Minneapolis is a major city. But the point is that I tell people all the time, one of the things I forgot to tell you that I did when I was a kid is as a result of these sound productions I was doing, you take it around and get to know people, and I would make a deal with a guy at the sporting goods store. He'd say, would you do some commercials for me, and I'll give you free tennis shoes. Now,
Oh, that's hilarious.
the thing is that every even small
It's
city
adorable. I agree.
has
Regional advertising.
regional
Yeah, there's
advertising.
quite a bit.
Right,
There's
so
quite a
you
bit.
you find a way to barter, and you not necessarily do it for money. You say, look, I'm going to be, I would love to do your thing. Here's my tape, and the guy says, oh, great, I can pay this guy $50 to do my commercials for the local,
And the internet too is giving you a lot of opportunity
true.
to do.
right.
You can do
Well,
commercials for
what's
people.
Voice
or-
Bank is one of
Well,
those
no,
things.
I mean you
Voice
can
1, 2,
do.
3, voice chase, like all
Yeah,
that.
it's easier to audition for things, but
Right.
I bet what you're talking about, bartering your vocal skills
Yeah.
for something, you could probably do that online too.
Online too. So the thing is that don't be afraid to be creative, because a lot of guys and girls whom I speak to have lovely speaking voices, and and we will talk about this if we decide to hopefully pursue this. One of the seminars will be specifically about commercial voiceover, and I can get folks to come in that do trailers, promos.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a whole.
it's
different.
a whole subset.
It's different. So
Yeah.
you start thinking, well, do I need this? Do I need that? Maybe not.
No, and the thing is-
people who do promos, there's
That's
a
pretty
lot
much-
of those people don't do anything but that.
Right.
And what a great job it
Oh,
is too.
It's like
I mean,
being it's like being in
printing
walking
money.
auto teller, man.
Yeah.
I did promos for CBS for about 6 months, 10, 12 years ago, I guess. I don't know. And oh my God, the money was
Yeah,
astonishing.
I don't get to do a lot of that.
I don't
stuff.
either.
Because I have this quality in my voice that says, I don't give a crap about you or
or
your
your-
show
or your stupid show.
product.
Right now, you want a talking Gorgon PMS cow?
There you go.
I'll knock the shit out of it for you.
But there are enough roles of people who, for characters that are
Yeah.
cynical and bitter and unpleasant.
Well, the thing
or
is that
whatever.
your background is like mine, is performing.
Theater.
You're an actress,
Yeah.
and same with Abby, and I was an actor first, so that by and large, if you listen to my commercial demo, which I think you can hear on my website, it's at robpaulsenlive.com. I think my demo is there, but like Mr. Opportunity is me, Mr. I'm knocking, and virtually all the stuff I would get would be either straight young announcer guy stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe I don't have a set of pipes that's going to make me.
But that's, you bring up
You're
an
not going to do the
interesting.
dramatic movie trailer.
Yeah,
Right.
although you could.
In a
but-
world,
But
I'm
people
not
won't
that
think
guy.
of you that way, most
Yeah.
likely. But you bring up an interesting point. If I could remember what it was, that would have been a really interesting tangent, but I don't remember what you were just saying.
Well, here, I'll jump in with another question
Another
that kind of
question.
jumps off. It
Okay.
says, how do you figure out what you do well? There's
that's
a
an
interesting
interesting
Oh,
question.
that's
See,
sort
I
of where
thought
I
that
was.
was
Thank
maybe
you.
where
Okay,
you
good.
were.
The question is how. By the way, do we know the people? Can we give
Yeah,
them?
I'm sorry.
the
This
kudos?
last one, the how do you figure out what you do well, is Mark Paxton.
Mark, thank you, Mark, for your
you.
question. And so, please, how do you figure out what you do well?
You know.
Yeah.
You do. You do.
Next question.
You know.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
You know. You don't need to be told. You know. You know where your voice feels best. You know what you're good at. You know what you like to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
it's
remember
like-
earlier when I said that often, remember I said trust your own instincts?
Yeah. Mhm.
Often I would find that what would make me laugh or give me a good
Yep,
feeling about
that's it.
something is almost always something that other people find interesting.
Yeah, that's true.
And I did a voice the other day. I was thrown this is a great question, Mark. I was thrown this show called Tough Puppy, on which I work with Butch Hartman. And they brought me in for a character, and they said, we want you to play this goofy talking fish. And they said, he's called Lofty Perch. So he's a very erudite, full of himself thing. And I'd been working on this very strange voice for years that I thought might be
It's
interesting.
almost like Sammy Davis Jr. meets Pinky.
Yeah, it's sort of like,
Yeah.
you're right. It's actually,
Simi-
I've got you,
Pinky
Anthony Quinn. I've got you in the thought of me. No, But I just threw it out there and I was playing and that voice I used to do in my car,
Yeah.
going, oh, this is quite disturbing. I've wet my trousers. Oh dear. But Butch said, oh, I really like that voice, and it made me laugh, and it made Butch laugh, unbeknownst. You know what I
And
mean?
you reminded me of what I was going to say because you're talking about creating voices for your own amusement and stuff.
Right.
The thing that was the hardest for me in making the transition from somebody who worked to somebody who worked for a living.
Yeah.
is
Oh, great point.
Thinking on my feet.
Yes. Improv.
And I've done a lot of improv, but in that moment where the producer's looking at the thing, and there's like 6 parts that have to be cast among the people in the room, and they'll say, April, can you do like what this person would sound like? And in the beginning, I was like,
yeah.
I actually had, this is really sad, but I had a little piece of paper in my pocket with all the characters that I knew that I could do. So when I got asked, I
How
would take it
cute
out and I
is
would
that?
look and I'd be like, oh, I could try that, I could try that. And then it got easier and easier.
Right.
But that's really developed that library in your head
know
of
your
things that you
wheelhouse.
can do, know your wheelhouse. But more than that, this is why improv is so good. Improv is all about creating characters right
Instantly,
now.
yeah.
Right this second with
Right.
limited information. And that's what it is. When you get in the room, when you're lucky enough to get the job,
Yeah.
and you get in the room, there's always going to be parts that need to be dispersed among the people
Right.
in the room, right?
Right,
Your man
always.
number 3, your man number 2. Even Walla, it's like, can you sound like somebody else? And you're like,
Absolutely. And you
It's
never know
scary,
when the
but-
part that they throw you ends up being a regular gig.
that happens
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. That happened to you, Justin?
Emperor's New School.
Emperor's New School.
One episode turned into 30.
I did that too.
How about that?
That's where, there you go.
See, that's where you guys know. You didn't. It wasn't just
small
rehab that you
voiceover.
know
it
each other
wasn't just
from.
MySpace.
Yeah.
It wasn't just Friendster.
It was.
Wow.
That still exists.
No, but listen, I did that. I do a show now called Ben 10, and I play this character called Magister Patellidae, which is a bad impression of me doing a bad impression of Jeff Bennett's good impression of Don Knotts. So when I was in the work one day, they said, "You do Don Knotts." I said, "Well, not as good as Jeff Bennett." What do
I
you
do
go,
Jeff
"Well,
Bennett doing
I do
Don
Jeff.
Knotts."
Yeah. So I do my thing like this and blah 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 and yakety schmackety, and I figured I'd try it. And they said, "Great. Well, I've done probably 20 of them as that character." So the point is that your question about what do you know you do well, you know, you will know that, and in addition to that, become able to be very facile on your feet.
That's really
because you don't you want to be as comfortable as possible.
Right.
When people throw you a curveball, or if they give you a gig and they say, we were talking about it, we like what you did in the audition, that's what we hired you
But
for.
can you do
But
something
we
else?
decided to change it, and you don't want to say, oh no.
I don't know what to
Right.
do.
Right.
So hopefully
don't
that
know
will.
what to do.
Yeah. What's the next? By the way, if
I
you
feel
don't mind
bad.
staying here, this is great.
Yeah.
I'll stay here until you tell me that. I'm in
No,
your-
you
I'm
can
in
leave
your
anytime
way.
you want, sweetie.
So we have
Until
a
you
couple.
kill my other parent.
Serious. We have a couple that I find very apropos,
Yes.
and I don't usually sound like I smoke 6 packs a day. Have you ever lost your voice before an audition? How do you recover, or how do you get better quickly as possible when to get back to work?
Well,
Just what are your tips?
This is from whom?
This is from. Sorry, I'm losing some
okay.
of the names on here. I'll get back to you, but
Okay,
go over the
we'll
question
get
while
back
I
to your
look.
question. Well, that's just, as a practical matter, I mean, everybody's got the flu now, so your question is kind of an academic one. I mean, I don't do anything particularly to protect my voice. I work pretty much.
There's some products that people use, like throat coat
Throat
is real
coat,
popular.
yeah,
Can I put an added to that
Yeah.
question?
yes.
Do you audition if you are sick?
Oh,
Do you go forward?
Great, and this was actually germane to your thing about
Right.
when Abby was going to meet a new agent, and I remember you called me, or
It's like,
James, yeah, we
I'm
talked about.
throwing up. I can't
Right.
sit in a room for more than 5 minutes without having
Right,
to run out.
and I have that
It's
effect on most women.
It's true. You
Yeah.
If they live,
But the question, that's a really good question, because in addition to what do you do if you're sick and blah, 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 and you lose your voice, I personally, and I believe I told you,
Right.
that unless you can go in and give your 5 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, and really knock it out of the park, then I would respectfully say I'm
I
not.
would never do it.
Yeah, you would
Yeah.
never.
No, I'll tell you why. Because if they liked what I did, I wouldn't be able to replicate it
Right.
because I wouldn't be seen.
Right.
Right.
But not only that, I think it's just incredibly disrespectful to
go
other
and
actors who
act,
make their
yeah.
living with their voice to
Right.
go and
Be sick and
horking your
around them.
germs around in
Absolutely.
the booth on spitting on the microphone and then
Which I do as a matter of course.
you do
Because
just
it's
walk
just fun.
down. That's your warm up.
Yeah, but the
Speaking of-
no, you don't want to go in there and spread your germs. But also, you want to always be at your best. And the thing is that as a matter of your natural sort of existence, you're going to have days where things just aren't going your way. And we were talking about earlier, April made a really salient point outside, which I was trying to make, probably rambled too much in the first part, was that part of what we talked about earlier in terms of divorcing yourself from the money aspect of it to focus on the passionate and blah, blah, blah. The same thing happens with respect to walking into an audition with the fact that you had a fight with your boyfriend, or your dog is sick, or your car's not working, you have no air conditioning, and it's 117 degrees outside. You have to be able to focus at that. So in addition to that, if you're sick and you don't sound good, you're going to go in going, I hope they don't hear that I've got, cholera.
Yeah.
Don't.
And tuberculosis is really
Yeah.
throwing me off.
Right.
So I have another one coming in here from Jason Dayoff 71, and I apologize if I butcher your screen name. Some of them are really weird.
She doesn't care.
Do you have any kind of warm-ups that you do beforehand or that you recommend?
Do you do any warm-ups?
Specific ones?
I never used to.
Scotch rocks, water back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never used
New
to.
York.
And I used to
Unique New
smoke
York.
too.
I know, you were a
I
smoker.
used to smoke, which is
Bad.
bizarre, but I don't know what the hell I was thinking. But I never used to, but I'm doing a show right now a new show called Wander Over Yonder,
Right.
which is the new Craig McCracken, Lauren Faust, My Little Pony.
Can you talk about who's in it too?
Show. I'm so excited about this show. It's
Disney.
It's me and Jack McBrayer from 30 Rock,
Yes.
who plays Kenneth, I think
And
his
he,
name
Yeah.
is.
and he does Fix It Felix on Wreck-It Ralph.
On Wreck-It
Yes.
Ralph,
Yeah,
exactly.
Fix It Felix.
He plays Wander, and I play his horse. So there you go. I branched out from cows to horses.
You're a new pachyderm.
But
I'm so happy for
Such
you.
a great show. And
Give
it's
me a
fun.
horse or a cow or a gorgon with PMS. I think we're looking at an April Winchell.
Craig is the the guy behind
Powerpuff Girls. I worked with Craig on Powerpuff Girls, yeah.
Lauren, his wife, is My
My
Little
Little
Pony.
Pony,
So
yeah.
the pedigree is amazing.
Yeah.
Tom Kenny is in it,
Oh, great.
and it's a great show. But that is a really vocally demanding show. So since I started working on the show, I do warm up in the
Yeah.
car by the time
And what
I
do
get
you
there
do?
because I scream the whole time. I do old musical warm-ups that I
sing.
bet you know.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Arpeggios
and scales and
Lile la
Mama
moo.
Moo,
Yeah, right.
Vive Mama Moo,
Right. Right.
yeah, all that stuff, and also the yawning,
Yeah.
loosen the
to
jaw,
loosen all this
loosen the
stuff, all
neck.
my old singing lesson stuff.
Well, the
That
thing
helps.
is, yeah, and I mean, my background, by the way, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, the background that I had in music before I started singing rock and roll was all classical. So my parents used to say to me, look, you can listen to as much Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and Beatles and The Who as you want, but you also have to listen to Prokofiev and Shostakovich and Mahler and Debussy and all that. So I gained a real appreciation and starting to sing, all those little vocal exercises.
Yeah.
I don't really warm up unless I'm going to have a singing session. If I have a singing session, and
Yeah, I
especially
do
if it's
for
in the
that as
morning,
well.
then I have to warm up. But like you were saying, there are really easy, do stretching, me, me, mamo, moo, li, le, la, lo, lu, all things where you pronounce all vowels and stuff.
You do red
that,
leather,
and it's
yellow
good,
leather,
kind of
red
looking like a
leather,
red
yellow
snapper.
leather.
That's a good look.
Red leather, yellow leather, unique New York,
Unique New York. I have
Yeah.
It does help though.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers.
Yes.
Clarabelle sings a lot.
Oh, that's right. Could you do a little Clarabelle for our...
Oh, jeez.
Come on.
I used to call Clarabelle my secret Disney shame because people didn't really know it was me, But now they're like with Regretsy, they're kind of people have put it together, and then on Talk Soup or not Talk Soup, The Soup.
The
Soup.
with
Joel
Joel
McHale showed a clip of Clarabelle and the triangle bush. Did you see this?
No.
Where there's a triangle bush, and Clarabelle has to find a secret button in the bush to push, and if she finds it, fireworks go off. I swear to God. She, oh, well, here's the triangle bush, Mickey. Let's squeeze it and see what happens. And so that was like, that
Man,
took it to a whole new
Asking.
place.
That's just asking.
If I
the
had a
bucket?
nickel for every time I've said to myself,
no,
let's find the triangle bush, squeeze and see what happens.
Yeah, and people go, did they know? And I'm like, they knew.
They knew. They're not.
Stop it. And I told
Oh,
Donovan,
you're
the
killing me.
director, I
Donovan
said,
Cook.
did you, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, did you see the Triangle Bush episode? And he goes, I did. He goes, I wonder if we should send them over the clip about the magic clam. I said, do that.
Do it. For the
that.
What the Kids Are Watching segment on the
Oh,
series.
the
oh,
clam thing.
thank you for that.
So we have Baxter 8. To truly become successful as a voice actor, do I need to relocate my family from Ohio to LA?
Well, if you're going to do animation, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. The thing is that we talked a bit earlier about moving here, and again, and this may just sort of segue into another question. I believe somebody may ask, is it ever too late and all of that.
Yeah, we have a few of those
Do
actually.
we?
What part of Ohio? you say?
What he didn't say what part of Ohio.
If it's a
he's
big
from.
city,
Well, if you're in Cleveland,
then there's
Right.
lots of regional work there.
there's work there. I have a good friend, Jennifer Enskat, with whom I used to go to high school in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Lives in Cleveland and works as an actress all the time.
Yeah.
Now she's doing stage and the occasional TV gig, but she's.
But there's so much local advertising
there's-
everywhere.
yeah,
you know,
you-
furniture stores, car
Yeah.
dealerships,
Right.
medical.
Right.
That's a huge thing that people don't really think about is doing the medical. Like, you know, there's always someone on there who's like, you know, Los Robles Hospital. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's just, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of it's not union, so they'll take it from whatever city they're working in.
right,
so
and the thing is, but if you're talking about doing what we do,
No.
then you have to be here.
can't live anywhere but
Um,
here. Or well, not even New York. There's no,
No, there
Animation
really
is
there's no
here.
isn't
animation.
that much.
It's here. It's
And-
here.
And in Canada, it's Toronto and Vancouver, but in LA, it's pretty much. I mean, in the United States, it's pretty much LA because this is where Warner Brothers and Disney and
Yeah.
Right.
Universal and all those folks are. Fox.
We have another question that actually kind of springs off that nicely. Is Mercury313 asks, how does one get into SAG-AFTRA,
Oh.
and how does it affect potential voiceover work, being union as opposed to not? I mean,
Some agencies won't even look at you
Yeah.
if you're not in the union, but at
Or
the
if
same
you're-
time, they can't
It's a
represent
catch-22.
you for non-union
Yeah.
work either. So
And we all are in that position. Eventually, you find a way, and I think that's a great question. Obviously, when I came here back in the Stone Age, I wasn't a member, and in those days, they were two separate unions.
Right.
But once
that was
you,
just like a month ago. Though.
yeah, a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
But the
you could buy into AFTRA.
you
used
can
to be-
you
yeah,
can go
you
ahead
can't
and just
anymore.
Can't
join.
anymore.
Now that it's part of SAG, you can't buy into AFTRA
Right,
anymore.
but you can buy into both, right? You can just pay your money.
No,
you can't
no, you
anymore.
have to
You
get a
have
job
to go
to-
through. You have to have three from
Vouchers?
Yes, you have
Okay.
to do 3 vouchers, get SAG eligible, and then you have to. Yeah, so
Okay, well now that's a great question for you because you just signed with an agency.
I did.
With Atlas Entertainment. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And one of my students, I might add.
Yay.
But that and $4 will get you a latte. But you got an agent who was happy to take a flyer on you
Yeah.
without your union affiliation. So tell the folks what you did.
Well, you know, part of it is just, for me at least, part of it is a lot of networking, finding, you know, because my introduction to Atlas was through a friend who's been represented with them, and you just have to be really good at being at the right place at the right time
That's a
for
big
stuff
part
like
of it,
that.
yeah.
You need to and have your demo ready, have your stuff ready to go. It's not something like, oh well, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it, you need to do it. You need
Right.
to bring it in and be like, look, I'm ready to work as hard as I can for you to be able to work for me.
Yeah.
And it's important because right now, everybody who has the money or the equipment at home on their computer is making a demo.
Right.
So that's what the difference is. You need to be able to really back up that with saying, here's what I can bring to you.
Right.
And, you know, Atlas, I'm blessed to have taken a chance on me. They're giving me a trial period of like a few months, sending me out
Yeah.
just like a regular client. I've had, you know, 14 auditions in the last 2 weeks. Like
Great.
Great.
they throw out, you just have to be able to jump in and work and work and work and work.
Well, I think that sort of speaks to that old adage about that luck is when preparedness meets opportunity.
Absolutely.
And
You have to be ready.
You have to be ready.
You don't know when it's going to happen.
Right.
Exactly.
And
And if it comes and it's like it's so hard to get that moment.
Yeah.
And if that moment finally lands for you and you're like, I don't have a demo.
Right.
Right, exactly.
Well, but the thing is that
forget it, it'll never happen again.
my agent, I signed with SBV when I was not a SAG member. They
They
took
wouldn't do that now.
They probably wouldn't, although they wouldn't. That's right. SBV wouldn't in a million years.
They wouldn't even look at somebody who's not union.
Well,
Would they?
They probably would for a young person, but like we were talking, the gentleman who said about moving his family out here. I want to say that I would never in a million years ever try to disparage someone's dream. However, the practical aspect is you need to understand that if you're coming out here and you're 23, 24, 19, somebody's willing to take a shot with
Right.
you because you're able to be developed and your
Right.
talent can be nurtured. They know that you have to get into SAG someday, but they say, hey, this Abby Cluster is really great. I'm going to take a
Right.
flyer on her, and she'll get a couple of jobs, and we'll get her in SAG, and then by the time she's 30, she'll be working, and we'll have a great client. Well, I was 22, 23 when I signed with SBV. Now, if I came out here and I was 33 or 34, and I may have been good, but I don't have the union affiliations, the odds start to go down.
Yeah, they
I mean,
do.
you need to know that because you've got a family. So I'm not telling you that you're,
Yeah.
that you shouldn't relocate.
But there's practical aspects to consider.
There are
And
practical
the
aspects
other thing
to
that
consider.
people don't always doesn't click for people is that you are talking about starting a new career.
Yeah.
This is not. I sometimes get emails
People-
from people
yeah.
who say,
Hey, I need some extra money for college.
It's not
and my
babysitting.
friend says I have a really good voice.
Yeah,
It's like-
and I've been told that I'm really funny. And
I'm really
Yeah.
funny.
It does not like that. It's not. This is not. Picking up a shift at Gap. This
Yeah.
is a whole brand new career. No matter how
Right.
old you are.
Yeah.
And if you are an older person, you do have a family. You have to look at it that you are starting from ground zero
Yeah.
all over again. You're starting a whole new career, not a job, a career.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means such a huge investment
Commitment.
of
And
time
huge
and
investment,
energy and
absolutely.
Right.
financially.
And money.
There's money you have to spend as
Right.
well. So
Well,
Demos aren't cheap these days.
no, and the thing is that what I tell people who are thinking about coming out here, again, you need to have, we all talked about the passion and the drive, the commitment, all of that. But what I tell people is that nowadays with the internet, you can listen to anybody's demo. So you need to go on, search the websites of the various agencies in town. You can call the Screen Actors, SAG-AFTRA, whatever, and get a list of all the franchised agents, whatever, and they all have websites. You can listen to Tom Kenny's demo. You can listen to April's demo. You can listen to Tress's demo. You can listen to Katsu C's demo. You can listen to,
great resource.
everybody's demo. Maurice LaMarche, Billy West, everybody's demo.
Right.
And then you can go, wow.
Most of them have them on their website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or they have their respective websites.
that's what you're competing with.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's who you're going to be competing with, Jim Cummings. Not that it should dissuade you. In my case, it can inspire you.
It should be
Right.
inspiring.
It
That's
should be
the bar.
inspiring.
They're
But
working, and you can jump in a booth with them
Yeah.
at
Right.
some point. Which
It
But
can
that's
just-
the bar.
that's
That's
the
what's
bar.
out
That's
there.
what you need
so
to know.
meet it or raise it. And,
Right.
doing whatever it is you do well. But it's a good
So
resource to be able
we
to
have
listen to those.
Urban Mask asks, at this point in your career, can you take more liberties with the scripts, or do you stick with the text? Like ad-libbing, I think, is probably where he's getting. Like,
Yeah.
what's the level of ad-lib you're able to throw
well, you're a
in at
writer,
this
so
point?
that's a good question
It
for you.
really depends on the show.
Yeah.
I've done shows where I did a show for Saban once a couple of years ago, and the line was something like, "It is not the answer," and I said, "It's not the answer," and I got a thing on the talkback that could you
It is
as
not.
written,
Yeah,
please.
no conjunctions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do not screw with my
Yeah.
words at all.
Yeah.
And some people are like,
Have at
beat
it.
the joke,
Right.
see what you can do. So
Yeah.
it's not really about your level of experience. It's about the production.
Who
if
you're
they're-
working with.
if they're open to it or not. And you can always ask. I do.
Absolutely
Like I'll say,
ask.
would you like me to improvise? If you'd like me to try to beat a joke or something like that, or you want to just stick to the script? They're not
Yeah.
offended.
No.
They'll say no as written or have
Or
at
you
it.
have fun.
Well, and I know that in my case, I've developed, a facility for improv as a result of doing it years ago, and I get hired to
Right.
to come in and tweak
Right.
it. Not that I'm going to come in and rewrite the script, but they often producers like what we bring to the table in terms of our improvisational
Right.
skills,
Well-
and whether or not it ends up in the show doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't try it, because often what you say or you tweak a line or whatever will make a writer go, oh, like you said, beat the joke, I like that better, or it inspires another actor to come up
Right.
with something that they
Right.
like about that. So I always honor the script and the folks who have spent a lot of time writing it. But like April said, it doesn't hurt to say to a producer, hey, do you mind? I've got this idea, and they say, sure. And if they use it,
Sometimes I will, like if I see something really glaring, like the syntax is wrong
Yeah.
or something, I'll say, you know what? Can I just say she didn't go there, as
Right.
opposed to she won't? And they'll be like, oh yeah, good catch. I hear what you're saying. So
Right.
Yeah.
as long as you're respectful and you take a temperature of the room, is
And
it
the thing
okay?
is that you'll know that too.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'll
once
know.
if you're when you're working, and just be respectful. The thing
Yeah.
is that I had the opportunity, like meeting your father and other folks. I was like junior achievement. I was earning while I was learning,
Yeah.
but I was in the room with all these people, and I was just very respectable before I started to step out a little bit. I'd do my gig, but I'd be in a room with all these guys, and you can, like April says, you can take a temperature of the room, and know when respect the people with whom you're working, and don't be so presumptuous. But
Right.
but you will be able to feel that. It doesn't hurt to ask, right?
So Jake Crunk asks, how do you feel when a director gives you a reading, which I'm interpreting as a line reading?
Line reading.
Yeah. So how does it? Because how do you feel when they do that?
In my case, I feel like it's their dime.
That's exactly how I feel.
Hey man,
I like it.
I have no problem, and the fact is, I've been in circumstances where I have a guy on a commercial. I remember years ago, I was a talking armadillo for a Texas power company. Where I was at Margarita Mix in Hollywood, and we had a guy in the studio, a guy in Dallas, and a guy in Toronto on phone patches. And so we got to the place where an hour later it was like, it was 8 words. 8 words. And we get like later, okay, take 62. So everybody was afraid to make a decision, you know. So finally somebody said on the phone, Rob, how do you feel? I said, honestly, I feel like you got this in the first 5.
Yeah.
And respectfully, if you didn't get it in the first 5 or 20, we're on take 65, and either, respectfully, you don't know what you want, or I'm the wrong guy. It's both of which are possible.
Right.
You know, I've been let go before. I've been replaced. We talked about that's showbiz. But if I can't, as a professional, give you what you want in 65 takes with 8 words, tell me what you want.
Some of it is that they don't know,
Yeah.
true. But then I've also been with directors who I can tell they are just really don't want to give you a line reading
Right.
because it's
And you can put their mind at
considered
ease.
very, you know.
Yeah, we don't want to offend the actor.
It's considered of overstepping to tell me how to read my line. I don't
Right.
buy that personally.
I don't
And if
either.
I hear them struggling, and I'll just say, you know what, just tell me exactly. But I don't mind a line reading.
No.
I'd love to hear what you want, and then it lets me do a better job. So now,